Not only is a stick bait as close to a guarantee as a fishing bait could be, but it's incredibly versatile, and that's why it's perfect for adventure fishing. You can fish it anywhere. Shallow, deep, fast, slow, weighted, weightless, weedless, wacky. The stick bait, as the name implies, is a stick of soft plastic that bass in particular cannot resist. However, I have caught pike on stick baits as well. It's typically considered a finesse presentation, so it works best with spinning gear, but you can put this thing on your bait caster with some heavy line and a big weight and get it into some thick vegetation. Fun fact, this bait was actually originally designed as a jerkbait. Gary Yamamoto, who's the designer, realized that they would get the most bites as this thing fluttered down in the water. So enough talking about it, let me show you how I rig it. Personally, my favorite way is a wacky rig, and it's called that because, well, look at it. It's pretty wacky looking. It's almost like someone did it as a joke and then friggin' destroyed with it. The quick and dirty way is to use whatever hook you've got and hook it just right through the middle, call it a day, toss it out, catch a fish. These 1/0 wacky hooks with the weed guard are my preference. And to greatly extend the life of your bait, I like to take these O-rings, and there's tools for this, but I just do it the old-fashioned way. Slide them on. You put 2 on and you cross it. And you want to stick your hook right through the cross of the 2 O-rings. That way when the fish pulls, it's pulling on the O-rings, not on the bait. This also improves hookup ratio. Weightless, just like this, throw it in water as deep as 6 feet, around the edges of weeds or in pockets in the thick stuff. Also around trees in the water. If you want to fish slightly deeper structure or cover, you can get a weighted wacky hook as well. I don't have one here, but you can find them. The trick is to let it sink. It wobbles all the way down, and that's usually when the bass will bite. After it sits on the bottom for a few seconds, give it a good pop and let it sink again. Keep doing this as you bring the lure in. Patience is key. Vary the speed. Add an extra twitch. Watch your line for unusual sideways movement and lean into the hook set. This method is called a Texas rig. Very popular since it's easy and about as weedless as a fishing lure can get. Since the profile is so streamlined, you can pull this thing through some pretty dense vegetation. I like to use these 3/0 straight shank worm hooks, but you can also use these EWG hooks which have the more extended belly on them. The hook point goes through the tip, just like this. You want to do it until just about the hook starts to bend there. Bring the hook point through the bottom of the worm. Slide it all the way up to the eyelet. And right about here, you actually want to flip the worm. Make sure it sits right below the eyelet. Then you want to figure out where the hook's supposed to come through. Mark it with your finger. That's where you're going to put the hook point through. You bend the lure. Put the hook point there, push it up through, straighten out your worm, and then to get it super weedless, pull the worm forward just slightly, tuck the hook point into the skin, and there you have it. Ultra, hyper, mega weedless bait. You can also add a weight like this. This presentation will give you further casting. You can cast into heavier vegetation. You get a different action from the bait as it darts instead of wobbles. And you can fish in deeper weeds. Take a bullet style weight. You're gonna feed that narrow point first. You put your fishing line through there. Then you would tie your hook on. Then you would rig your worm the same way. Hook point through the top, right to the bend, go through the bottom, slide it all the way up to the top. Then you rotate the worm on the hook. Comes up near the eyelet there. Figure out where the hook point's supposed to go through the worm. Mark it with your thumb. Bend the worm. Push the hook point up through. Straighten out your worm. And then same thing, you want to pull the worm forward slightly. Tuck the skin into the hook point. And there you've got a weighted, weedless Texas rig. Cast this presentation right into the thick of it, let it sink to the bottom, and then start hopping it through the weeds back towards you. Usually you'll feel a thump if you get a bite, but if you lift up and you feel weight, set the hook. Worst case scenario, it's weeds. Best case scenario, it's the biggest frickin' bass you've ever caught. Oh my gosh. Lastly, I use this method for fishing deeper cover and structure, mainly boulders. You need this hook, which is called a shaky head. Some have a screw lock like this, others you just have to Texas rig it. These jig heads are designed specifically to stand the bait up and look like something eating off of the bottom. It's relatively weedless, but it does best on rocky or soft bottom. So just like the other Texas rig, put the hook point through the tip right to the bend, come down through the bottom, slide the worm up all the way past that keeper there, and rotate the worm. And then you want to find, the hook point is going to come through the worm on an angle with a shaky head. So you want to find where the hook's going to come through and try and keep that angle when you're coming up through the bait. And that way, the hook point sits right underneath the skin, but when the bass bites, that hook point is exposed. Vary the size of the jig head based on the depth you want to fish. The deeper the water, the heavier the jig. 1/2 ounce is probably as heavy as you would need. Once this presentation sinks to the bottom, you can slowly drag it along the bottom, feeling for features. When you hit something, give your rod tip a little jiggle and wiggle your worm. You can also hop it along the bottom too. If you feel a thud or a sudden weight, set the hook every time. Hook sets are free is a phrase I recall, but if you set your hook on a log, snap your line, and your bait's left down there, well, there goes $2 or $3. Still worth it though, because like I said, could be a big fish. The reason why this matters for adventure fishing is because when you're going out, you have to carry everything you need on your back. You want to bring as little as possible. So with a stick bait, you can fish it in many different scenarios, many different ways. This pack here specifically is Limestone Lures. This is called the Dipstick. And if you use the link in the bio, you can get 10% off these using our promo code. Subscribe for more, like the video if you enjoyed, leave a comment, let me know how you like to rig a stick bait, or if I've done something horribly wrong here. That's it. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.